increasing melt rate. So we have to do something really strong, really fast. We have to do something that engages the population in a way that hasn't been done probably since Earth Day some years ago, like 40 years ago, when people first began to be conscious of the planet as a whole. So there are programs that have worked in Germany and in Gainesville called feed-in tariffs, and later I will describe how that works. It's a way of engaging the population in a big way and having a sustainable industry that's growing 40% a year for the last 15 years in solar energy, plus a comparable growth rate in wind energy. So there are models out there that have worked in Europe, but of course Europe has a higher level of environmental consciousness. They have green parties that actually represent the interests of the environment rather than the corporate world.
Thank you, Dr. John. Albert?
Albert Harem Alvarez. Glad to be with you all. Always great to be with this group because there are so many great people here, folks who are so important to Miami, to this county, to South Florida, and glad to be with this panel. I agree we have to do something fast. I would specify, I think we need to do lots of things quickly. And I think I'm going to come out on the opposite side of the way David was using the term scale. Because I think, yes, there need to be some large-scale shifts, but I think we need a lot of small-scale experiments as well. And I think there are two ways that small-scale experiments don't happen like they should. One is one that I'm very familiar with from building our house. It's very tough to do new and wonderful things, especially in Miami-Dade County, when you're attempting to get a building permit. And the wonderful folks who work for Miami-Dade County, really, 201, were very much supportive of our house and said, those are great ideas. And go ahead and get it permitted, which it took about 1.5 years to build the house. It took 7 years to permit it.
Wow.
7 years. So I think there needs to be the chance to find those new ways that we build. I think that the result of our own work in the house is that we found that passive solar, not solar panels on your roof that create electricity, but passive solar has incredible potential here in South Florida. Below our feet, we're up a little bit, but below your feet usually, 10 feet down is 73 degrees. On my tours I say, that's San Diego. That's San Diego weather down there, and it's always there. And we have engaged it in two ways in our house, with geothermal, which was very difficult to do thanks to both the county and the state. Geothermal pulls the water up from the ground and then returns it, so we use that 73-degree water both in the summer to cool our house and in the winter to heat it. Came in very handy this January, where FPL achieved its largest peak power usage. Our bill was $40 using geothermal. So we've got the geothermal, we've also got thermally massive walls. I'm not going to go too much into that. I don't think I'll do too much more even at this session, but I do invite you to our house tour. The next one's happening May 1st at 4 p.m. That's a Saturday. I'll ask that you let us know that you're coming. We max out on this tour in terms of efficacy at about 70 or 75, and we've had a number of tours close to that, so we want to make sure we count heads. But you'd be able to see it in detail. But I want to talk about the other level at which I think scale is important and where we need to be able to try more things quickly. And that's at the level of the grid itself. We've all lived through this incredible miracle of the internet and what happens when you have a network that allows anyone to be a peer. It's this wonderful technological map of this notion of democracy. Anyone can get out there and do something wonderful and share it with everybody else. Our grid is not like that right now. And I think that one of the real battlefields will be franchise agreements with power companies such as Florida Power and Light. I think there's a chance to change those agreements so that we can start doing things, we can start having true choices, doing what this country does so well, which is business, capitalism, creativity, and get it, build the better mousetrap and be able to get that to the market. Right now, you can put solar panels on your roof, PV, and you can get paid by the meter moving backwards at the same speed that it moves forwards. Now, that's better than it was. However, the value of that power at 3 in the afternoon is much more than that average baseline power that Florida Power and Light provides to you. I think if we're able to open that kind of thing up, we're going to find that distributed power is going to be where we will be in the future when we've worked this out. There are going to be lots of smaller sources of power spread all around. Now note that what happens when you do that is you don't need big transmission lines. Now when you talk about fossil fuels here in South Florida, we're talking an awful lot about cars, traffic, and there have been some amazingly good plans made by that Miami-Dade County, who I was just dissing, for walkable communities along US 1, all the way down along the busway and at Dadeland with the downtown Kendall project and in South Miami. And FPL has a plan now which is, I think, very ill-considered and I don't think very well defended by FPL, to put power lines basically up US 1, down US 1 through that very spine. Remember, this is our backbone in South Florida. This is the higher land. This is higher ground. And as we talk on the Climate Change Task Force, of which I'm a member, about where we're going to put our strategic investments, where they'll be safe even if the water level rises, we talk about that ridge. So that Kendall is a high point, Cutler Ridge is a high point, right? And so we want to make sure that those, East Kendall, right, along US 1, we want to make sure that those areas are very high quality, very walkable. Putting the power lines there doesn't help. And I think the larger issue is that, when we were building our house, we had a very helpful FPL staff who worked with us. And they were great. I think the company is big enough to have some wonderful people working in it. And some folks who are not doing quite so well. And I think what we found of late is that FPL has a credibility problem in terms of reporting the information that we need to know to figure out if we really should be putting 2 more nuclear power plants, 2 more nuclear reactors at Turkey Point. There is proof that Florida Power and Light, from whistleblowers inside the company, has not been correctly reporting customer energy use. We don't see any evidence that Florida Power and Light has been able to change its projections of the growth in energy use in light of the Great Recession. So the question is it time for us to invest $24 billion of our own money in 2 nuclear reactors in the East Everglades? I don't think that case has been made. And until it is, we should not consider putting those lines up US 1.
I'd like to refocus on our questions and where we're headed with the technology here. But I took out of what each of you said, I'd like to ask you specific questions of what solutions are to them. If you don't mind, I would like to start with you again, George. You mentioned legislative incentives were something we needed to achieve in the state. How would you go about doing that, or how do you see us going about that, and what can someone in this room